Greetings, I'm Craig DeRoche with the Family Policy Alliance, and it's just a great privilege to be with you and also to bring in a amazingly strong and powerful voice in the United States Congress. Today we have Congressman Jody Hice with us, and we're going to talk about Congressman, some just really hard to get my head, my heart, my brain, my soul around some of these conversations that you're having to contend with in Congress right now. We've got Congress considering something they're calling the Equality Act. We have Congress considering an old thing called the Equal Rights Amendment and a bill called Violence Against Women. All these names sound like they're doing something to protect people. All these names sound like maybe they're trying to improve people's civil rights. But underneath this, it's actually a remarkably devastating attack on the civil rights of our women and our girls, and our ability and our freedoms as Americans. Congressman Hice joins us. He's an amazing leader, as I pointed out. He's got 25 years experience of being a pastor before he decided to serve in a different way, and to serve our nation in the United States Congress. Congressman, thank you for being with us, and thank you for joining the Family Policy Alliance live stream here.
Well, Craig, it's great to be with you and just awesome people at the Family Policy Alliance. And yeah, you're exactly right. We're in the fight of our life for our country, spiritually, morally, and you can go down the line economically in a host of other ways. But I don't think anything is more important than those deep-seated values that are rooted in biblical values that are so rapidly eroding right before our eyes.
So what is this Equality Act? What is it? It sounds like I said good, but what is it doing here that the people at home should be concerned about with its definitions of sex and gender identity?
Yeah, the Democrats have been masterful at putting great names on horrible bills and horrible legislation. And the Equality Act is one of them. I mean, who among us does not want equality? I mean, everybody wants to be treated the same in this country, and that's so they get great names like that. But you start digging into the details, the specifics of what's in the Equality Act, and it's absolutely horrifying. I mean, all the bills that we're going to be talking about today fall in this same category, but they are changing the definition of sex so that it means whatever gender you or an individual perceive themselves to be in any given day. And primarily what this is, just for example, a man who perceives himself to be a woman on whatever day, then you would be breaking federal law if you did not address and treat him as though he were a woman. Although biologically a man in every way, but if he perceives himself as a woman, you are the one who's breaking federal law if you don't roll out the red carpet and treat him as a woman. And this applies across the board, Craig. I mean, with him, that individual being able to use women's restrooms or showers, participate in women's sports. I mean, you just go down a whole host of things. It totally is taking away all protections that we currently have for women and children, and enabling, in this case, men to go to women's shelters. And it is unbelievable. And like you said a while ago, it's really difficult to wrap your mind around the thought process of what is more basic than male and female. And now we are watching before our eyes this most basic, most obvious distinctions that God has given us, and we are confusing it to the point that no one can comprehend. But that's what the Equality Act really is all about, is gender perception and the forced reality that everyone must comply with this radical agenda of recognizing these people as they perceive themselves to be rather than who they actually are.
Now, Congressman, you bring up like a really interesting point here, and this is where I think a lot of people on the left, they want to get credit maybe for saying they're for these different things, and it, as you say, it sounds good to say that we're expanding the rights in this case for a person that wants to be perceived as the opposite of what their birth sex is. But what you and your colleagues are pointing out is at a practical implementation of the policy that this doesn't mash up very well. This doesn't work very well. For instance, you brought up sports. What it would do after the progress of civil rights for women, the passage of Title IX, greatly increasing our girls and women's access to sports in 1972 to where women compete and girls compete with boys in high school, as far as the numbers that participate, the number of programs there, the colleges are starting to open up to women's sports and having equity there of opportunities for people to participate in collegiate sports. This seems like a huge step backwards because in the policy, what you're saying is, I could say that I'm a girl for purposes of that game. I don't need to change who I am. I don't need to have a diagnosis of anything. I can just demand a federal right to say I'm a girl when it comes to playing sports. I suppose that's a big problem, right?
You're exactly right. And you look at that young lady who for years has been training and working to participate in whatever sport that she has been working on, and she practices hours every day, makes it through high school, gets a scholarship to a college, or loses a scholarship to college because some individual who perceives himself to be a female comes out on the track and beats her at the 100-yard dash or whatever event. And now all of a sudden she does not get the first place and she loses a scholarship. I mean, this type of thing is happening, and it's just horrible. And who could ever not recognize that there is a biological difference significantly between the muscular tone between men and women? I mean, it's totally unfair for men to compete in women's athletics, be it on the volleyball court or basketball court or track and field or whatever it may be. But this Equality Act absolutely would enable that type of unjustness and inequality to become the standard.
And it's amazing that, like I said, and thank you for the work you're doing. We're here with Congressman Hice, who's represents Georgia, just an amazing leader in the United States Congress, former pastor himself, father, I believe, of two girls.
That's correct.
And I'm the father of three daughters myself. And so when the congressman says to me, like, this matters, when we talk, Congressman, about equality and taking it from a Christian perspective, everyone is born in the image of God. We don't know where we are in rankings of higher or lower in God's eye on any given day, when we all come up short with our sin. This isn't about judging people. This is about trying to form a more perfect union. And what is stunning about this is it actually seeks to remove the rights of women. It's not actually trying to just add the rights to somebody where they're absent, a place where everybody would come together and say that that's not right. Everybody's supposed to have access to our constitutional rights, our statutory rights. But in this case, it's actually subtracting from women. And I just want to point out a couple of other policy points here before we jump into, just a couple of other bigger concerns I have on this. But it's not just girls' sports and women's sports. If this passes, this does away with the rights that women have been afforded in other things that Congress has passed, like job, or grants for women-owned businesses and things of that nature. Because what it does is it essentially is getting rid of gender as a class. Anybody can use, in this case, female, when they fill out a loan application or they put in an RFP with the government to say they want to be counted as a women-owned business. There's no restrictions on it, right?
Well, that's right, and that's part of the mess that is created with all of this. And it's not, just women. The thing that is disturbing is what we've already been talking about is, beyond that, what is equally disturbing to me is that this is utilizing the force, the power, the strength of government to force the American people to embrace and believe something that millions of Americans don't believe. They don't want to. They don't want to acknowledge a biological man as being a woman. That just, like so many struggle with, is just kind of mind-boggling to even wrap your mind around that, much less treat that individual as though he's a woman, be it in the bathrooms or sports or, potential. I mean, just imagine you got a potential pedophile hanging out in the girls' restrooms and this type of thing. I mean, and there is nothing you could do to stop that individual. And this is so alarming to me. Utilizes the strength and the force of government to demand that the American people accept this as normal behavior. And if you don't, you are the one who is breaking federal law. And so this spills over into religious liberties and religious rights. It's going to have devastating effects on potentially on adoption agencies, on nonprofit organizations steeped in Christian values and principles. I mean, where does this stop when the government is telling you what you must believe, and if you don't, then you are in violation of federal law? It's very chilling.
This is amazing, and I'm so glad that you brought this point up, Congressman. We're Craig DeRoche with Family Policy Alliance here with Congressman Jody Hice of the great state of Georgia, and we're talking about the Equality Act. We're talking about Violence Against Women Act. We're talking about the Equal Rights Amendment. They're all kind of in the same corner today. Kind of as we speak, Congress is voting on potentially the Violence Against Women Act. So this is going on today. For those of you that are listening that might be thinking, is this just rhetoric, heated rhetoric, trying to get me excited? This can't be possible. This can't be true. I want to back up the congressman. This passed through the United States Congress, a bill called the Equality Act that allows anybody to declare at any time for any reason what gender they are. It neutralizes whether or not the fact of the science of whether or not you're born a male or born a female. That is going on right now. The ERA amendment that was dead in 1982 or 79, depending on how you interpret the Constitution. But the Supreme Court has multiple times and other courts just reaffirmed this is over. It is still being debated to allow access. The Violence Against Women Act. These things, Congressman, are happening right now, and a lot of lives are at stake. A lot of this impact, and it's not. We're not just trying to cherry pick like the worst case scenario and say this could happen. What he just said about pedophiles in a bathroom, it's actually in the words of their bill, their intention. They are saying in their words in here, Congressman, we want people to have access to domestic violence shelters, prisons, women in prison. People, the most vulnerable women society in our culture, I would argue, are people that are women that are locked in a cage. That don't have the rights of anybody else. And they are being told in this bill that in California, there's 300 men being moved into the women's prison right now. People have a federal right. And as you point out, this is not empowering the person that has gender dysphoria, transgender beliefs. It's empowering other people that want to game the system to be able to say, I can do this too. And what the congressman just said is if I am a person who has been convicted of pedophilia, that's what my inclination is, I can now go into the women's bathroom in Walmart. It protects me. It does not protect a transgender person, in isolation for how they want to live their life. It affords these rights to everybody for any reason, and that is wildly dangerous when we put that in the pathway of our kids. I do have one more point, because you brought this up, Congressman, but I want you to comment on what I just said. I want to talk about the beliefs and what we believe as Christians and what this means for adoption agencies and everything else next. But what do you think, Congressman, that the public's take is going to be on this when the people start gaming the system and doing these things? What are we to do at that point as a culture here? Because I think the people that are maybe been bullied, maybe been treated poorly in the transgender community are getting taken for a ride here, they're setting themselves up through these policies to get maybe even more alienation in our culture by going around about this in a way that actually hurts a lot of unintended people.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what the results will be of this. I think it is important to know, though, you alluded to it, the Equality Act actually passed the House of Representatives last week or so, is now sitting in the Senate for consideration. We'll see what the Senate is going to do with it. And now we have the Violence Against Women Act and ERA, both of which are basically the same type of bills. It changes the definition of sex to preference and gender orientation and all this type of terminology. So all these bills are basically related to one another in terms of different bills expressing and trying to push the same ideology of a confusion of what sex is between male and female, and it's just one of individual perception. And that's what's dangerous with all of this. But the Equality Act actually has already passed the House of Representatives. Now we're, as you mentioned, we're going to be voting on the Violence Against Women Act, and the same thing. It defines a woman as a man if he perceives himself to be a woman, and same with ERA. And so it's just all these bills are mixed up with the same thing. Of course, every person needs to be treated respectfully and honorably, but when government is forcing culture to change their views, and the government is literally defining what is acceptable belief and what is not, to the extent of punishing people for not accepting the belief that government tells you you must now believe and accept, that becomes no longer a society of freedom. That becomes a society of government rule and reign. And that is the direction that we're currently going with these type of bills. And it's extremely frightening. And there's no question these are going to have enormous ramifications in every aspect of our lives, from our church house to our places of business, to our schools, to our athletics, to protection, women's shelters, to privacy. I mean, all across the board. And that's what's really frightening to me. Government setting the standard of what is acceptable belief and what is not acceptable belief. And if you do not conform, you'll be punished.
In Congressman, I want our listeners, thank you all for listening in, for sharing with Congressman Jody Hice of Georgia's beautiful 10th district, who's taken time to talk to us about the Equality Act, the Equal Rights Amendment, which is a zombie that actually has been over since 1982 at least, and the violence against.
Just interrupt real quickly. Just one more thought. I want people to understand, and you said it, but I want them to understand this is not, we're not trying to fearmonger here. We're not trying to create horrible. Actually, in the Equality Act itself, in the bill, it stated that religious beliefs and so forth could not be applied as an exception here. So this is designed to alter deeply held religious biblical beliefs, or whatever beliefs a person's life and worldview is based upon. But it specifies religious beliefs and convictions do not apply as an exemption. You cannot claim that this goes against your religious conviction. So that's very important that they actually put that in the bill.
Yeah, and I was just great minds. That's exactly what I was going to point out. Is we need to let people know that are listening to this. This is very, very real. This is singularly. I don't know of anything. I don't know of an energy bill or a tax policy that says you can't have your religious beliefs and still, I don't know, pay your gas tax or whatever you have to do. This is really the first time I've ever seen where they say, and you by law, we're removing your religious liberties by name. The congressman is not exaggerating here. The Religious Liberty Act of 1993, you have to do this regardless of it. It is scary. All of the fear mongering people that talked about our republic, the franchise of what it is to be in America could be lost with different things. But Congressman, I think that you really touched it here, and I wanted people to hear what you're saying. if we can change the definition of what a man and a woman is arbitrarily on any given day in the United States Congress, we can change the definition of anything else. It's a scary time for our country. And this bill seeks to remove, not allow us to say, well, that's okay because I have my First Amendment rights to be a Christian, and I think that you're all crazy on the other side. This is the first bill that says, no, the government can forcibly intrude into your church, your nonprofit, your foster care agency, or anything else to force these beliefs on you in what you teach. Congressman? I might have lost the congressman there momentarily, but I'm so grateful that Congressman Jody Hice was with us. If he's still with us, we're going to be bring him back in here for a moment. But what we were just recapping there is that this this bill, the so-called Equality Act, actually takes this unprecedented move, which one would have to wonder where it would end up in the federal court system, but of saying that religious liberty doesn't apply. So people would be required to think this way, regardless of whether or not they're a faith-based organization or not. Small business owners, large business owners, but also very much faith-based organizations and churches would be able to say, in this situation, the federal government would say you're not allowed to rely on your deeply held religious convictions. You have to rely on the definition of who of all things that flies in the face of biology, flies in the face of thousands of years of tradition and everything else, that a boy is a boy and a girl is a girl. And Congressman, we had a little technical glitch. Thank you so much for jumping back in, but I was just recapping for the audience the really important point you made, which is this is probably the first time maybe you've seen where they actually put in writing that religious beliefs do not apply. You're not allowed to have your deeply held religious convictions when it comes to gender anymore.
Yeah, that was very shocking to read that in the bill. And it's first time I've ever known of such a bill to specify. I mean, we've always had religious exemptions for bills that were just on the edge, going beyond our moral beliefs, but always they have included language that gave religious exemptions. But this one specifically says that religious exemptions, RFRA type laws do not apply, and you can't claim that. You know, the question becomes, Craig, is this actually going to become law? I believe President Biden is committed to sign it if it gets to him. Right now it's hung up in the Senate. We don't know what the Senate will do. Will they take it up? Will they not take it up? There's a part of me that believes they're not going to take this up. But right now, this week, Chuck Schumer has been threatening all these bills to be passed with a nuclear option so that the Senate would bypass the 60-vote majority and just pass them on simple majority. So, I mean, they are talking about possibly forcing these things through and ramming them down the throats of the American society and culture. You know, no doubt if that happens, there will be a lot of lawsuits. But you hate to be in a position where we're having to depend on lawsuits to stand up for our First Amendment rights and the religious liberties that we enjoy in this country and the right to exercise our faith in the public square. And the fact that we have a major party in this country now that literally is passing laws like this in the halls of Congress is very, very frightening.
Well, it is, Congressman, and I just want to let you know how grateful we are here at the Family Policy Alliance, and we have hundreds of thousands of people that we share these messages out with every week, and how grateful they are to have you come on during your busy week while you're facing these votes in a minority position for now, a minority position, but lots of prayers, lots of support coming your way. Amazing leadership. And thank you so much for really being a light for the rest of us that hear these things. We see them on the news and we wonder, what we can do to help, what we can do to get involved. And I would say, please, if you're listening, share this on your social media. Please share it with your friends. A lot of people don't realize this is actually going on, but as the congressman pointed out, this already has passed the House of Representatives. Folks, this is real. We're not just crying wolf here. We need your support. And Congressman, what can they be doing? How can the folks that are listening be helping you and your peers? What should they be doing today?
I would say there's really two things, and thanks for asking. Two things primarily, and the first is absolutely the most important. Y'all, we've got to understand we're in a spiritual battle. All these issues at the end of the day are revealing a spiritual problem that we have in this country, and you cannot fix spiritual problems by passing another piece of legislation or throwing more money at a problem. We've got to have a change of heart in this country, and that's where the body of Christ and people of faith come into the equation. We still have 2 Chronicles 7:14. There is no greater weapon we have than to pray and to cry out to God, asking him to help us and do for us what we cannot do for ourselves up here in this situation in Congress right now. So I just urge people sincerely to pray like they have never prayed before. And then the second thing is just get involved. It's impossible to be salt and light if you're not engaged. By definition, salt and light means that you're in it. And so I encourage people to step up to the plate, get involved in their local school board meeting, city council, county commission, state, federal. Show up, be present, be accounted for, and get behind individuals who are running for these positions. We are blessed to be in a country, and people need to understand this. Our system of government does not work without involvement of the people. And so when people, particularly Christians, are disengaged, then we all suffer. And our whole system is set up for we, the people, to step up to the plate and get involved. And so those are the two primary things that I encourage people everywhere I go to do.
Well, no more real words have been spoken lately than that. We need you involved. The government is not going to work unless we're involved. They're trying to redefine who boys and girls are arbitrarily. We need to get some, we need the Christians, the body of Christ, to speak into this. So that's a great rallying cry. We're going to leave it there today, Congressman, but we are going to rally the troops. We're going to get behind the congressman, his peers, in trying to fight back some of this bad legislation. We want to actually, this is International Women's Month, that for crying out loud. Let's stand up for the congressman has 2 daughters. I have 3. Let's stand up for some of those rights that women have gained in the last couple hundred years. And let's just keep moving forward as a country. These would be a huge setback and a devastating setback to our religious liberty. So, Congressman, thank you for pointing all that out. Thank you for really energizing our audience here today. As we'll join you. We'll keep you posted on our progress, and we'll be sharing what you're up to with our audience as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. God bless you.